Wednesday, June 9th, 2021, 4:30 p.m. This special budget workshop meeting is called to order. City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Mayor Hendricks.
Here.
Vice Mayor Price. Here. Commissioner Hodges. Here. Commissioner Andrews.
Here.
Commissioner Hudson.
Here.
Okay, it doesn't look like we have any public comment tonight unless staff would like to make a public comment. So we'll move right to the topics for discussion. First is Capital Improvement Plan Overview. City Manager Daniels and Mr. Laughlin, would y'all like to start on that?
Sure, I can take the lead. So, wanted to give you a bit of an overview to talk about fund balance and kind of capital reserves that we have, talk a little bit through that and what's in the financial statements, so you kind of know what we have available for capital use. Then I want to talk a little bit about Arpa, which is the American Rescue Plan Act, just some very recent updates, in fact, and that can also kind of play into some of our budgeting decisions around capital. So I want to hit on those two items first, and then we can just go through the spreadsheet and address questions as you have them relating to what you see in the spreadsheet for all the fixed assets by department. And we did it from 2022 for basically through the end of 2029, I believe, was the requested department. So long-range capital plan, anything that they had in those years, that was what was reported on the spreadsheet that was included in your packet. So first, I guess let's just talk about kind of what the city has available. So in your financial statements, in the general fund, we've got reservations of fund balance, and so in GASB terms, there's non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. So the classifications that relate to capital, there's two. One's, and they're both committed. Let me pull that up. And so one is called committed, let me get the exact wording on that, but it's related to the BP settlement. So yeah, that's what it's called, committed for BP settlement. So this is $383,544. And it's been that way for a number of years. So basically in fiscal year 2015, the city received $452,123. And so we spent a little in years past. Current balance is $383,544, and that's been untouched for a number of years. So that is money available in the capital fund that's been sitting there, in the general fund, excuse me. I do caveat, all we need to do is appropriate that. There's some compliance requirements set by the state, and then our auditor, as part of the annual financial statement audit, will do testing around that for receipts and disbursements. We have no receipts because we received it years ago, but whenever we disperse money and reduce that, the auditor will do some testing around that. But the only real requirement is that we get your approval for how we want to spend it. So you can actually spend it on operating needs, but that money is there for you all to appropriate through the budgeting process, and then we can act on that in the fiscal year 22 budget. So if there are some capital needs that you all that we have, and okay, where's the funding source coming from? Just know we do have $383,544 from the BP settlement monies that is sitting there and has been sitting there, and there's no real narrow restrictions on that. We can use that on just about anything at your discretion, and we'll go through that through the budgeting process to appropriate funds from that. The other piece is there's two other commitments: committed for capital projects and debt service, and that's also in the general fund. And so what that relates to is there was a resolution number 2018-05, that established a parking rate increase of 50 cents per hour for daily parking. And so that additional revenue was to be committed for what was called infrastructure, community aesthetics, cosmetics, which basically you can call infrastructure and improvements. And so at that resolution, we said for that incremental increase in parking revenue back from that resolution passed in 2018-05, 50% will go to that, and then 50% will go to for debt service payments. Then we later issued Resolution 2019-10. That then amended Resolution 2018-05 and said, okay, we're going to now allocate that entire 50% entirely now to debt service. And so that was the intent of the resolution from 2019-10. It says, whereas due to the need to continue to pay down existing debt and future debt to address stormwater needs, is the recommendation of staff to allocate all of the additional revenue for debt service payments. So that changed the allocation from 50-50 to 100%. But from that period from 2018-05 to 2019-10, we were calculating that additional 50 cents of fee revenue. How do we do that? We take the monthly parking meter totals from the 25 meters in the general fund, reduce that number by the sales tax that we pay, and then reduce further by Park Mobile app and Way to Park app fees, and then we multiply by 20%, and that's 50 cents of the $2.50, and that's that increase that we bring to that committed fund balance was 50-50 between capital projects and debt service, and since 2019-09 is all in debt service. So why am I telling you this? Well, we've been building up just those reserves from that 50 cents. So I just want to make sure you all are aware that we have that available.
How much is that?
So as of September 30, 2020, it only accumulated up to 55,941. So we've got BP for 383,000, and then this capital projects for $55,941. So a little over, close to 450,000 that has been just kind of sitting in fund balance and is available for appropriation should you want to commit certain projects or capital acquisitions to that.
Andrew, can I ask a quick question on that? You're saying that 100% was going to debt service, so why is anything in there?
So there's also a debt service reserve. Yes.
Oh, okay, so there's a separate one. Okay.
So that is 401,646.
Okay, so we're reserving it for debt service, we just haven't paid it into debt service.
I believe we are reducing, we reduce it when we pay debt service, and then we also bring it up from that incremental parking revenue. So I think there's ins and outs into that, in that fund balance reservation.
I think that you just confused me, because I thought what we were doing I remember when this all went down, and Happy probably does too, only because this really affected John's Pass, because when they did that 50-50 restructuring, when they raised the parking, that 50% was supposed to go towards the beautification of John's Pass. That got pulled not too long after that, right? 2019, so it wasn't very long after that, and we started a debt service. We started putting all this money to debt service on a loan that I believe the interest rate was like 1.2 or something insane that we shouldn't have been paying down. If we can get 1.2 loans, we should take out $100 million right now and let's get everything fixed and go. Yep. So I guess my question then is, that $401,000 is available? The one that you said that
no, it's restricted for well, I should say committed for debt service. But
it hasn't been paid to debt service.
So at September 30, 2019, that reserve number for debt service was 710,642. Then in 2020, we get this parking revenue, that incremental parking revenue, that increases it, but then we also then decreased it for when we pay debt service, because when we pay the debt service on the stormwater fund, the general fund transfers that to stormwater. That reduces that reserve balance. So it went
the accumulation since the last time we paid it, and then we're scheduled to pay it again in September.
We'll be scheduled to pay it again next year, right? So it'll go up when we get parking revenue, and it goes down when we make debt service payments.
And if this board thought it was more prudent to change that ordinance and keep that money, is that something that we could do?
You could pass resolution and say we want to revert that and to however you however you'd like.
Thank you. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I just wanted to get, that's interesting information. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to give you the background info so you know kind of these fund balance, amounts sitting in fund balance that are not unassigned, meaning they have a certain restriction attached to it, whether it's from an external entity or internally, you or your predecessors through passing ordinance or resolution. The other item I wanted to go over is just some discussion points on Arpa, which is the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. So just yesterday, they did issue some new Q&A guidance on the what's called the NEUs, or the non-entitlement units. So the city of Madeira Beach is a non-entitlement unit. So what does that mean? That means we get this, that we're going to get this Arpa money from the state. So the state gets it, and then they pass it to these non-entitlement units. Metropolitan cities, tribal governments, and counties will get it directly from the feds, and there's an application process online, and that's how they get the money. We're going to get it through the state, and the amount, and when the state gets it, they have 30 days to distribute it to the non-entitlement units. So should be getting it soon. I can't tell you exactly the date because that depends on, you know, the speed of when the state gets it and the state distributes it, but the idea is soon. It's going to be in 2 tranches, so we'll get the first half soon, and then the second half no earlier than 12 months from when we get the first tranche. Last I checked, I think it was 1.8 million was based on the preliminary calculations. So how is it calculated? It's a very simple proportion. So you just take your the total population of all NEUs, so whatever your population figures for each non-entitlement unit, divided by the total population of all eligible NEUs, and that's the proportion, multiplied by the total payment made to the state, which is $1.4 billion. So we'll get the small sliver of that in comparison to the population of all the other Florida NEUs.
Now, Andrew, excuse me, but are there restrictions on that money?
Yep. So I've got some talking points on that, so maybe we'll hit that now. The other administrative hurdle, which is none for us to overcome, but we just have to submit the information. In fact, I was in the process of doing that, is the amount distributed to us, to the city of Madeira Beach, cannot exceed 75% of our annual total operating budget. No problem. We're not even anywhere close to that. Okay, our budget's a tad bit higher than 1.8 million, so we have nothing to worry about there, but maybe there are some that might be closer, hitting that threshold, that might have to return some of the money, but not us. So that's really the only other factor to consider. So let's talk eligible uses. There's 4, 2 of which I think are not really relevant or of interest to you all. And so the first 2 are COVID-19 response, mitigation, and prevention activities, and then assistance to households, small businesses, nonprofits, and aid to impacted industries. So if you wanted to give away money to, for a rent assistance program, or give money to small businesses, you could do that. That's kind of where that would fall into. The second would be responding to workers performing essential work during COVID-19 public health emergency by providing premium pay to eligible workers. So that could even include private sector employers. So if they're a business that's in healthcare, or even maybe restaurant where they're serving individuals, we could offer some premium pay and program and help boost the pay for those frontline workers. Those are the first 2. I don't think it has quite the appeal for you all, but those are 2 options. The second 2 are, I think, of much more relevance to us. So one is just revenue loss. And revenue loss, that's a calculation, and so that's based on you take the average of your last 3 fiscal years. So we take the average from 16 to 17, 17 to 18, and 18 to 19, and we look at what that trend is, take the average of those 3 figures, and that is our baseline. And then it's either the growth percentage is either 4.1% or that whatever that increase was. So they say that average was 6%, growing, from 16 to 17, then 17, 18, 18 to 19. So we take whatever that average is, and that's our baseline, and then we do a calculation from January 1 to December 31, 2020, of all revenues of the city. There are some exclusions, but none, I think, that pertain to the city. So if we have water utility, which we don't, that would get excluded. Actually, if there are federal grants, any federal grants that we receive directly from the feds, we exclude that. So a couple small exclusions. Otherwise, we take all of our revenues from 1/1/20 to December 31/20, and then we compare whatever that's called our counterfactual revenue, and then we compare that to what the revenue increases were, and basically that difference is going to be what our lost revenue is. So if we were on a 6% upward trend and our revenues were about flat from 1/1/20 to 12/31/20, well, then that 6% is what we can recognize as lost revenue, and then we can spend it. So I still need to perform that calculation, and I will, so we can see in dollars what that looks like. And then basically how we can spend that, it's relatively wide open. It's basically the provision of government services. So what does that mean? Not just anything, but they say government services can include, but not limited to, maintenance of infrastructure, building new infrastructure, including roads, modernization of cybersecurity, they're big on that, including hardware, software, protection of critical infrastructure, health services, environmental remediation, school or educational services, the provision of police, fire, and other public safety services, so we could fund our fire budget out of that lost revenue. I like that, Clint. Pretty good. But then there's some exclusions: paying interest or principal on outstanding debt, replenishing our rainy day or reserve funds, or paying settlements or judgments would not be considered. So, and then there's a lot more chatter and Q&A. Well, you said this, but does that also mean this? So there's going to be more guidance that comes out that further clarifies those things. But the idea is, based on a revenue loss calculation, we've got some pretty decent latitude on how we can spend that lost money. And then the last piece.
Question on that, if I can.
Sure.
We get revenue primarily from taxes, which weren't affected by COVID at all, and our parking. Where else are we going to look to see where our revenue? I mean, obviously we'll do a parking analysis to see where our parking was.
It's going to be everything. So it's going to be our ad valorem taxes. It's going to be all our state taxes, our state revenue sharing, our half-cent sales tax, our local government or government infrastructure tax, our parking revenues, our recreation fees, our sanitation revenues, our marina revenues, all of that. If we had a water utility and if we had federal grants, those are the two main things that we would need to pull out. But otherwise, enterprise operations, sanitation, and marina are still includable. So all that gets included.
We didn't, lower the sanitation bill to anybody, so I'm just wondering what realistically we can look at there.
They want to try to simplify it.
Oh, okay.
So
we
this
just
is,
take all the income.
we take all of our revenue.
Okay. In
Say,
one
what was
lump
our
sum.
revenue in 2016? What was our
Okay.
revenue in 2017, 18, 19? And let's take the year-to-year increases of each and then average those out. Let's say it's 5%.
I know how to do it. I just wasn't sure
Yeah.
what big
And-
revenue we had coming in that would actually be affected by COVID other than parking, but, because I don't think taxes were lowered, but sales
much.
tax, obviously.
Well, and that's why I need to
People
do
weren't
the
buying
calculation as well to see
Yeah.
just what our revenue loss is.
All right.
And I don't think it will be much because we weren't hit that hard.
Yeah.
Now, the building fund, that's not included in it, is it?
That would be included. So our license, permit fees, all those, yeah, that's part of it.
Because that's got to be spent on the building department, and that's why I was asking.
Even if it's restricted, they're still just saying, we're going to do one big blanket revenue loss calculation, and everyone's going to do it the exact same way, regardless of revenue sources, except these few things to exclude. And this is how you're gonna do the calculation. And we'll see, yeah, so we'll see how it shakes out. So I'm gonna be working on that, put that together, see what number that looks like, and then that can be an eligible source for a much wider variety of expenses. Then the last one, the last eligible use is water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. And then they have the Treasury released its interim final rule, and that generally aligns those eligible uses with those eligible to receive financial assistance through the EPA, or Environmental Protection Agency's Clean Water State Revolving Fund and the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. And so that includes a number of things, including even stormwater. So I think of greatest interest is that we can earmark current and future stormwater projects to these revenues. And even if our revenue loss calculation was minimal at best, that's a solid avenue to explore. Now, we can't pay debt service with this, but we have till 2024 to spend the money, December of 2024. Eligible expenditures start March 3rd, 2021, so we can't say, well, look at all the past year's stormwater. We have to start March of 2021. We have till December 2024 to at least earmark, appropriate those funds, and even incur expenditures outside of that. But if nothing else, we can find those, in lieu of issuing new debt, we can take that money and earmark it for future stormwater drainage improvement projects. Because from my initial read, that would all be allowable under that fourth eligible use.
So that'll make a down payment on Parsley and Marguerite.
Yes.
Pay that amount first and then dip into the loan that we made to be paying the rest of that off.
I think we'd say, okay, this is this aspect of this project that we're going to fund with ARPA, and then whatever is remaining, we'll issue debt or have debt proceeds that can spend on it. I'm going to be keeping up with all the latest guidance and Q&A and making sure that that's all eligible, but assuming it is, I think that makes our decision-making process pretty easy. We can go through the revenue loss calc and see how it shakes out, but even, like I said, even if it's minuscule, we've got some big stormwater projects that, to me, from everything I read, look like they'll be applicable.
Yeah, and I think we've got state money for that also, $575,000 for stormwater.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think it's for the roadway project. It works with the stormwater, but it's the same thing. And, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, I think the money we could also use as part of a match for that, the dollars that we do get out of Tallahassee, because there is a match behind it. We're, getting that paperwork together as we speak.
So that's all I had on just some intro topics leading into the capital budgeting. Just our process on the capital budget, we entered into our department heads entered into our new budgeting software, all their capital requests. And I downloaded that, and that's what I presented to you all and summarized by department. So I'll let you all dictate how you want to conduct the remainder of the meeting. If you just want to ask questions, we can have different department heads come up. So maybe I'll just kind of pause here, and you guys can kind of decide. That's kind of how we did it last budget workshop. You started digging in and just asking specific questions of the department head. So we can go that route if that's how you all want to do it.
I need to ask a question. The 2019 Chevy Silverado that's currently under the enterprise lease agreement, is this something that's going to be transferred over? When we talked about the enterprise, I went beyond it.
That's in Archibald.
Archibald, okay. Yeah.
You want me to cover that, or do you want to cover it? Pat?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought we were gonna.
This was done prior to, I think, the discussion that we had, so whatever we decide, if we're purchasing them outright we'll just have to make adjustments.
That's, while we're on that subject, do you know when we're getting that state money?
The 500,
The, 1.75 million?
the ARPA money,
Yes,
uh,
of it we're getting
the half,
soon.
yeah, I do not.
I spoke with Bob about the groins yesterday, and I believe their budget starts July 1st. So for us, we would, because it's a 50% match, we would earmark it for October 1st.
Okay,
Currently, I'm working on the RFP for that now.
okay.
Well, all the stuff that's, I went through here, first thing I did was mark everything off that's not coming up in the next fiscal year. Because there's a lot of stuff on here, I was about to fall off my chair until I realized the vast majority of it is not gonna be paid. So, like, we've got till 2025 for that Chevy Silverado, for instance.
I think that's based on the lease,
Right.
yeah.
That would be,
This will be changed, obviously. So for Archibald, really, the only thing we're talking about for this coming up fiscal year are the groins, right? Am I reading that correctly? Okay.
Yeah.
And we want that, and
sorry,
if that's a good number, then let's move on.
there was one more Archibald item that, or two Archibald items that didn't make this list, and I apologize for that. One, Megan, do you want to just cover those? There were the two items.
So one is replacement of truck number 40, which is a 2009 F-350. And then the other one was the ADA improvements for Archibald.
Bathrooms.
Correct. Yeah, it would be the finishing of the ramps.
You have the cost on that?
For the ADA ramp, $100,000, and for the dump truck, a quote came in at $95,000, but I can get that down. That was just a quick quote.
And the bathrooms, how much of that?
Currently, I have $85,000, and to finish it out, it would be another $100,000.
Is that 85 gonna be spent this year?
85 is in this year's budget, 100 would be in 22.
Got it, okay.
I'm looking at the fire department on here. We're gonna take all this out of Clint's paycheck.
Andrew, real quick, is this, on the first page there in the building department, the 50 grand, for the software, is that the software that we've been talking about to get them up to date? Yeah,
Yes, initially that was budgeted FY '22, but we're working on getting that implemented well sooner.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I thought $13,000 stuck in my mind.
Yes, that's for the code enforcement software, and that will be part of the '22 budget, but I think it's like $3,100 if we started it July 1, and that's what we're looking at doing, paying the $3,100 for the rest of this fiscal year out of my current budget, and then it'll flow. The $13,000 will come out of the budget for next year.
Okay, so we can get it.
It's not considered a capital expenditure because of the way it's classified. It's
Okay.
So under the fire department, looks like we're paying for this Pierce engine over multiple years? Since it shows up every year for quite a while. Go ahead and tell me about it.
So
So what that is actually the replacement of our backup engine right now. It's reached its end of service life. The previous fire chief and the previous finance director, they had already had this in the works, so I just followed along with it. We paid the $225,000 down payment was, in this year's budget, we paid that, and that was from the loss fund. And for the next 5 years, $144,000 for the new ladder truck. And how our current ladder truck is a 2017, and how this got all weird and messed up with the years of when to replace them is, apparently in the 90s, there was a fire truck we had, and it just kept breaking down. So then the commission said, let's just buy a new one, and that kind of threw off the replacement plan. So that's why our current one is a 2004, and this one's a 2017. So it's a broader range there, if that makes any sense.
Secondly, can we use your rescue boat to put up our swim buoys and things like that?
I talked to Megan, and she could use it for the seawalls as well.
Okay.
It's multi-departmental.
Thank you.
Well, that's good.
So we have a boat now, folks. No.
No, unfortunately, that was
Unless you win $100,000, then you can.
might be able to figure something out.
Why am I forgetting what the acronym CIP means? What is
A capital item.
Capital improvement project.
Capital Improvement Project, okay. So here's my question, and it's not, I love you, so, and I love what you guys do, and that's great. Your predecessor had a habit of putting a lot of things onto budgets, and they would skim them down, and then after a certain time, he was in charge, and all of those things got approved. So Clint, my only question to you is, and I know you're an honest guy, so you're gonna be honest with me.
Sure.
What can we do? Because, we're gonna be looking at the numbers in the...
Yeah, I can go down these.
No, it's gonna be just a general question, and
Yeah.
then we can go down each one.
Okay.
But what can we do to maintain the level of service that we have, but somehow skinny down this budget to the things that you absolutely need, not to the things that you absolutely just want?
Yeah, and
That's the only thing that's the only question I really have for you, because, when we're looking at the next part of the budget, as far as personnel, that when we're doing that 2017 to 2019, or 2021-22 comparison, that's the biggest albatross in the room. We sit there and we stare at it and go, we're up $1 million, but the majority's there. Sure, it's for a good reason, but I think we all need to feel a lot better about checking the box.
sure, absolutely, I understand.
I'll leave it up to you, go ahead.
And so the first item on here is for the 2 portable radios, $17,000. That'll come out of the general. The rescue boat for $65,500 is a request, and that would come out of the loss fund. The replacement of the 2014 Ford Explorer at $40,500 would also come out of the loss fund, and the $144,000 annual payment for the new ladder truck would also come out of the loss fund. And the replacement of the Ford Explorer and it's actually the jet skis, but we're trying to upgrade our level of service, so I'm requesting a rescue boat. Those jet skis can't run at night, they can't run in inclement weather, and this will just upgrade our level of service to our citizens. We found a very cost-effective boat that would function beautifully. I've already looked at it. I was given a test drive on it. It's really nice. And in that Rescue Recovery Act, one of the first 2 things it stated, like essential employee salary. Throughout this whole thing, the fire service has been considered essential. So is that an option as well? Maybe supplement the budget that way, or I'm not sure.
Even past March 3rd, 2021, I guess is the question.
Maybe not. But yes, excuse me, I got off track there. But so the rescue boat, which is the jet ski replacement, and the Ford Explorer they were in last year's budget, but the previous finance director asked me to push them back to this year, and that's why we have these 2 big ticket items on here.
Clint, are there any grants available for that boat?
I actually have an AFG grant out for that boat right now. I'm just waiting to hear back. It's a FEMA grant, so it takes me 2 weeks to apply for this thing, and then you just sit and wait. I looked today, actually, to see if we were awarded the SAFER grant or the AFG grant. Everything I see, I apply for it, and you know, persistence will pay off, I hope. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
One thing I had just, you know, the record of water rescues that we've had, you know, not only in the past, but I know we've had some incidents that have occurred, near the, Tom Stewart Causeway Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think having a boat is probably gonna be more practical. At least some of those incidents that I know of, they had to come back and they could transport the individual off the boat that was dying.
And I guess this could be talked about as utilitarianism. You know, you sacrifice one for the good of many, and unfortunately, we did have a resident who drowned. The call came out at just before midnight. He had a dinghy. He lived on a sailboat. His dinghy flipped over. He ended up drowning. I don't know. He lived on a sailboat, but he couldn't swim. I don't know, but he ended up drowning. Our guys could not run our jet skis because it was in the evening, and we waited. Seminole's boat was currently on another call. Treasure Island's boat had mechanical issues 1 hour into the call, so they decided that they weren't going to respond 1 hour into the call. And then St. Pete Beach's boat, Marine 23, is the one that actually came all the way up here. Pinellas County Sheriff's Office boat recovered the body at like about 4 o'clock in the morning. And it was in close proximity to where that boat stock was. So you could just imagine if they wouldn't have recovered that body. I'm not saying we do have subsurface capabilities. I don't consider us recovery team. I consider us a subsurface rescue. If the individual has been down too long, I don't think we're fully equipped to do underwater scuba search and recovery type missions.
So the rest of these items are, you have a schedule that you have to replace them, that's required.
Yes, sir. Let me see. There was one sooner than that. SCBA replacement in 2023. Of course, I would be requesting a grant. The grant was awarded to Madeira Beach 10 years ago when we replaced all our SCBA. They only have a 10-year service life. We were awarded a grant for that funding, so of course, when the AFG grant opens up again, that'll be the top priority for that AFG grant. We'll just continuously apply for the SCBA replacements at $100,000.
Okay.
And for layman's terms, those are the
the air packs.
Scott air packs.
Yep.
You know, that the firefighters use to
Absolutely.
as they go into a fire.
Any other questions?
That's got it for me.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Yeah. And Commissioner Andrews, I definitely can look into that, trying to, look at these items, and maybe we can get a better deal on the rescue boat, or, try to trim it down some.
Yeah, I mean, as long as, I think everybody's in agreement, as long as it doesn't hurt our quality of service. If we can do something,
Absolutely.
If there's something that's like something desirable, that's terrific. If it's something that's just necessary, it's obviously, nobody's gonna say no to something that's gonna save lives. So that's our #1 priority up here, so thanks.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Well, looking forward to John's Pass, what happened to the boardwalk repairs?
First thing on my list as well.
Huh?
That was the first thing on my list as
I
well.
mean, we're really doing nothing for John's Pass proper. We're doing everything for the beach across the street.
Unfortunately, I do not have that exact answer for you, but I can get it. I don't know if that's in the budget currently. When we started doing this, I was unfortunately thrown a lot of different projects and trying to figure out what was what. But I to not forget about the boardwalk. And I know that the boardwalk can be done for a much cheaper price than what it was presented to you guys.
In the FY '21 budget, there's a project called Johns Pass Regrade and Repave Parking Lot for $100,000.
Yeah, that's not the boardwalk. But if it's allocated to John's Pass, I unfortunately don't have that answer for you either. I will look into it and we'll get back to you. But when we originally planned that project in 2018, the bid came back at $39,000 to either replace, rejacket, or just clean and jacket. So we can definitely get it done for under that $100,000 that's currently budgeted.
We should put that in there. We should put that,
Well, I think it's actually a necessity. I think we've talked about it for a very long time. And going back to what Andrew said earlier, that one fund, frankly, was technically designed for, it's $55,000 is sitting in the 50% split fund that was, I mean, that was designated for Johns Pass anyway. That's exactly what that first 50% was for until it got cut. If nobody up here has an objection, I say that money goes towards Johns Pass, but the first thing that we do is we fix the damn boardwalk, because I do not want to be on the news with the boardwalk toppling into the water and guests being on it. This has gone on way too long. It needs to get fixed. I think we have bids on it, Megan. I can talk to you afterwards and.
I have a bid on it from a couple of years ago, yeah.
Okay, so I think we need to push forward on that, and let's use the money that do we have to do something to do that?
I think so, and clean up some of that, some of these funds that we have that have been sitting there and not being spent.
Well, I know I was talking to a business owner the other day, and he was talking about the money that was supposed to have been basically earmarked for Johns Pass Village, and then after we raised the parking rates and a quarter was supposed to go to Johns Pass Village, nothing happened. And
because it's sitting in our bank, and then a year later, we took it away.
And consequently, when you talk about raising parking rates down there, they're like, wait a minute, we already
I totally agree. There's a lot of ideas that we have for Johns Pass Village.
And, of course, unfortunately, if you can't generate the revenue, I'm not going to get into another big loan to build a parking garage down there. We had quite a discussion. It was like, well, the parking is for you, so y'all might want to get all the owners together and buy some land and build a parking garage and keep your own revenue. I thought I was doing a good thing by saying, let's raise it a quarter and build a parking garage, but apparently I was wrong. So, but we do need to, if they were promised some funds to clean up Johns Pass and maintain it, we need to keep to our word on that.
I agree. And if I have your support, then we will definitely do that.
Okay. Other than the boardwalk and then that one surf shop building, what else does the city own down there?
We own all of the sidewalks along Boardwalk Place, the bell tower, all along 129th.
The parking lot?
We don't own the parking lot. Just everything that has the same color pavers in Johns Pass Village is the city's property.
Oh, the parking lot by,
Hubbard's?
by,
The center one by the bathroom?
Fantasy Planet?
Yes, that's ours.
Yeah, that's our lawn.
And all the parking along Boardwalk is ours.
And then across, Gulf Boulevard, 130th. That one.
Johns Pass Park?
No, 130th, it was
That is
already
ours.
the parking
The
lot.
parking,
ours.
okay.
Okay. That's all I've got.
Thank you.
Yeah, and on that note, Mr. Mayor, and I've had conversations with folks down in Johns Pass too, and you hear the same repetitive deal, but, the one thing I think, first of all, what they should be mad about is the people charging $40 a shot to park, right? They shouldn't be mad at us, okay? Because as I've explained to some folks down there, well, I mean, if you were running our business model, I said, if you owned a fishing boat and you were charging people $30 a head to go out on the fishing boat, and it was full every day, wouldn't you raise it to $50 to see how many people showed up? And if you're full then, you'd raise it again. Well, right now, I mean, you cannot, I was just down there, what was it, last night, Wednesday night?
Yeah.
Ain't no parking spots there, there's nothing there. And, you know, a parking garage, I think that, I would like to have a town hall with them. I mean, let's sit everybody down and let's talk about it, because if they're saying that parking rates are the reason that people aren't going to their business, that is completely not true, because the parking spots are all full. It's the lack of parking spaces, and that has nothing to do with the cost at this point, or the price that people are paying. So, I mean, I think if we sit them down and we get them all in the room and we talk about the benefits of this to them, number one, a parking garage down there would be a huge benefit to the city. I think that would be a slam dunk for us. Put it up and turn on the lights, and it'll start generating revenue for us. Pay it off in probably 5 years, and then it's, you know, revenue in perpetuity. But yeah, I want to get their buy-in on it. But I think this is a really good olive branch right now, because that's found money. And what about garbage cans and
We just
benches?
replaced all of those.
We did replace.
So
Okay,
when
good.
we removed the ones off the beach that were a couple years old, we swapped out everyone in Johns Pass Village.
Okay, good.
Now what we do need to replace down there is all of the benches.
Benches need, right.
All the benches need to be replaced.
Yeah, they.
And there's probably about 20.
Okay.
Okay. And I guess we should ask the merchants what they would want this money spent on, if, I don't necessarily want to take this whole 55 that we had promised them for improvements in the area and then spend it on the boardwalk.
Well, I think there were contingents with it was money that we were going to spend, and we were going to
Right.
decide where it went. We would take obviously take their
We
recommendations.
can clean the sidewalks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not gonna hand them a check for 55
Right.
grand, but we're
Pressure
gonna.
It was to beautify. We do
Exactly.
pressure wash Johns Pass Village quarterly, and then a deep clean at the end of the year. So that does happen, along with cleaning the bathrooms and pressure washing. So that is being done, but there's more things down there that we could do to beautify Johns Pass.
All right.
Thank you.
6 months ago, we were talking about different garbage cans for Johns Pass that the beach truck could access. Is that an option for this?
I think that's what we're using.
I think what you're referring to are the toters that we purchased for the beach that are being used with the Broyhill. The reason why that will not work in Johns Pass is because you have to physically pull up to them and then empty them that way. In all reality, it would be nice, but right now, we just have to get used to the beach and the beach parking lots before we try to implement it in the village.
Okay.
Because we purchased 100 toters, and I only have 2 left right now. So, we would need a lot more.
And a rolling toter in Johns Pass will start.
They do. One of our ones from the beach actually ended up over underneath Hubbard's. So we then have to go and find them. I'm not kidding.
Look along the beach, I see plenty of them now, so.
They're beautiful.
No one's
They're
got
very
any
uniform.
excuse. There's always a garbage can within quick distance.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, we can pay for them with those fees we're going to get from the condos and from the county for emptying their garbage cans 5 days a week, 6 days.
They're really not that expensive, to be honest with you. The toters cost $50 for the ones that we currently have, and the 32-gallon brutes are $35. So we get quadruple the size, more aesthetically pleasing. Thank you.
Okay, so have we agreed that we're gonna put the boardwalk repairs onto Johns Pass Village in the next fiscal year? Or at least get started with whatever the study is
I would say yes.
required? Okay.
Because I think we've got a consensus on that.
That's fine. Unless we can do it sooner. I mean, unless we can get it done before October.
Okay, if that's everything on Johns Pass, I guess we're on to the marina.
Just in reference to the high and dry, we did have a meeting today, Andrew, myself, Brian and his staff, and the consultants, and we're hoping within the next 2 weeks, we'll have the information, documentation, that we can sit down at a workshop. And I know we have some things we wanted to cover at the workshop on the 30th, but maybe we can put those off until July, maybe couple it with another budget workshop or something to cover those items. And if they do have the documentation ready for us, I'd really like to move forward on the high and dry and just take the 30th workshop as covering that. And I know we have to bring it up at the regular meeting, but I just wanted to fill you in up to date. And I think we're looking for the documentation to come in about a week before the 30th. At least that's our request. So I just thought I'd throw that out for you. That
Okay.
we are getting somewhere with the high and dry finally.
Good, good. And in fact, I'd like to see us sometime in July, probably August at the latest, maybe several of these companies that are interested in a joint venture come in and give a presentation to the board so we can see what they're talking about. And
Okay. That's a great idea. I think once we know what the consultants are saying,
right.
and it sounded pretty positive, but they were still doing number crunching. So, as soon as we get that information, and have you heard anything else from them since our meeting? Is that pretty much where we're at, the 20th?
Oh, yeah, we had a good meeting today, because I reviewed all their financial projections. I had some insight and comments, so they're going back and tweaking some things, and we did a walkthrough of the area, and there was some spacing discussions and some reevaluation of where some things will go, so that's causing a little change in the construction costs, but things that they felt they can get nailed down and provide me an updated draft by next Friday, the 18th, which will then give me a couple days to review, so we can get that on the agenda for the following week. So that's the plan. If they can't get it done, then we just push to the next open workshop meeting opportunity in July.
So where did these numbers come from that we've got for the high dry storage facility?
They're really just placeholders. They did come from their initial report, but don't take stock in them. Let's get their full report, and that'll kind of give you the full flavor of all the components of construction costs, and then the CBA or cost benefit analysis over time.
Okay.
But Andrew, we're gonna have all the information from this way before we have to approve it, right? I mean, because we got $7 million, well, counting the other 400, so we got $7.4 million in 2022 for this project, and 25 million total, 29 million total, right? 20, 25, and then 2 and 2, $29 million.
Yeah, 25 million is the grand total.
Of the marina portion, and then if you look down at Public Works, this is all an add-on to the high and dry. So we're talking about a total of nearly $29 million. And that's their initial number they came to us with?
That was before they conducted their study. I think we're going to see, at least from what I heard today on the Public Works side, that number is going to be a lot lower.
Yeah.
Incorporating it into the building, so.
And that's information I have got from F3, is that basically you're looking at 15 to 20,000 per slip, which is basically what a parking garage is. And the slips are running for anywhere from $22 to $30 a foot.
How many slips are we talking about? I mean, I have zero information on this, but $15 to $20,000 to build, and the number of slips we're looking at is?
Well, that's something
We don't know yet.
I need to know.
Oh, okay.
I
just,
that
you know,
from
we're staring
Cardno. That's why I was saying this. You can't really even go by the figures that we've got.
Okay, but we got, like I said, we
Yeah.
got $7.4 million in the budget for this year for it, so I'm just hoping we have some more concrete numbers before we sign off on something like that.
We will.
All right, that's good.
Okay, Public Works,
There's only one thing on there for the next budget, anyway.
yeah.
Just topping back to the marina real quick, isn't there $20,000 for an ice machine in the current budget? We've been talking about an ice machine down there for 5 years. I thought that we approved it last year.
Commissioner, there isn't.
Okay.
We rent an ice machine right now, and so this would be purchasing 2 ice machines, give us a lot more volume, and be able to just really, I mean, we spend so much money on the rent.
Well, yeah, I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are we still looking at one of those,
No,
okay.
no, not the big auger. It's really, we don't have the right kind of space for it to start with, and, I just don't think we have the clientele for that. They have one next door, and that they use to fill up the big fishing boats, and increasing more than, almost tripling our capacity right now for bulk ice. I think we'll be able to service a lot of people, the commercial guys.
I was going to say, do we have that many commercial boats coming in?
The ice machine right now is empty by 7 a.m.
Every day?
Every day in the summer like this.
Really?
It is.
Okay.
Yep. When the charters are all going out.
Okay. Director Wepfer, can our mechanic work on this ice machine when it breaks down? Do you know that? Okay. Can you check with him? No, that's okay.
It'll come with a guarantee
yeah.
for a while, I'm sure.
Well,
a
yeah,
warranty.
Commercially, they don't last that long. Beg your pardon? I'm old, I can't hear. That's,
It would have a service agreement.
yeah,
We have service agreements for the generators. I mean, Leroy can pretty much service anything, but with something new like that, it would go through that first.
yeah, well, I know when it's new, it has a warranty, but,
Mm-hmm.
okay, thank you.
I got a guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not that I want to disturb the progress that we're making, but it's 5:28, so I just wanted
Oh, yeah,
to keep
yeah.
y'all on track.
Okay.
So what is the public works shell for the, adding onto the high and dry? And is that something that you still want to do?
If we can.
Right now, we're calling for that to be, it's like an L that goes around the northern part and the eastern part of the high and dry building. And it's scheduled to be encompassed as part of it. The way it's built, we can have that as an option if we want to continue it, or we can take it off, you know, as we're looking at other sites maybe for public works. But for right now, they have that information, and you know, if their numbers come up being correct, and when Andrew goes through them, when he finally gets them, it could save us some money versus going out. So.
Yeah, property's so expensive now. I know I've been looking around. There's nothing available. If it is, it's unaffordable. So.
Well, I'm looking on to sanitation now, if I don't know what everyone else, I'll just talk. If we're gonna spend $500,000 on new sanitation trucks, we may wanna increase our fees even more. I mean, or have that in mind, because that's a lot for next budget, I think, replacing 2 trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's cyclical, so in our sanitation fee study, we base that on depreciation expense, which is taking that sanitation truck and saying, okay, it's 5-year life, so we're gonna spread that cost over that 5-year period, and that's essentially what the depreciation does. Because if we go through, okay, 1 year we're gonna buy 2 trucks, and the next 3 years we don't buy any, you know, that skews the results just due to the timing of the purchase. So certainly the cost of that capital is captured, it's just captured through, an annual depreciation figure.
Okay, stormwater.
Stormwater, Area 3, good. Moving forward.
I've got something I'd like to add to stormwater, or it might be in Public Works, I'm not sure which. We put some of those WAPRO valves in to try to keep the streets from filling up when high tides and storm surge. Is it time to buy a few more and eventually try to do most of the problem ones in the city?
From what I've seen, most of the problems we've got with those that I've seen, Dave, are maintenance. They get oysters and barnacles in them, so if we're not keeping them.
Do they work? Have they been working? I mean,
140th is a disaster area on a king high tide. You have people driving in people's yards.
Yeah,
And it's been a problem forever. The bottom line is, you know, we live on a barrier island and there are low spots, and they weren't built up when everything was built 60, 70 years ago,
So the sheet that I just passed out to you, the top one is currently the price for the valves. This goes from 6-inch all the way to 30. The second page are the valves that we purchased in 2017 and put in Boca Ciega and one on Pruitt Drive. The question, do they work? Do they slow down the water? Yes. Do they stop the water? No. But they slow it down enough to where the water doesn't immediately cover the roadway. So if our intention is to slow the water down from the street flooding, then we can look into purchasing them for certain areas. I think it would depend on the areas that we're referring to. 140th, where you're talking about, is that right at the intersection, South Bay Shore? We do not have a valve there. What we did was we added an outfall pipe there when we did the Boca Ciega project.
okay,
But
that
we-
lets the water in faster.
Yeah, we can certainly look at it, but that's just a very low spot.
Yeah.
well, I have no problem adding a few in if we determine that they're gonna
That they
work, you know, or help.
Well, why don't we pick a spot that we know is really bad every time we got a king high tide, even it doesn't have to be a storm and it doesn't have to be rain. It's not rainwater, it's salt water, and people are driving
You just picked the
through
spot.
it.
140th has gotta be the spot. I mean,
You know,
Let's say
that's-
140th as
Yeah,
that's
that's the
gotta
high
be-
traffic
Or
area.
the short end at Bay Point would also be a really good area to try.
But 140th, we're catching all the traffic regardless of who lives back
Mhm.
down in there, whether
Let me look at the size of that
it's a
pipe,
mile.
and then, I can contact and see what the cost of it would be.
Okay.
Because this is just for the cost of the pipe,
Plus-
or the valve, not installation.
See, I've been told for years and years, there's one at 140th and South Bay Shore.
No. There's one on Pruitt at 704,
Yeah,
where it used to flood, but there's not one there.
okay. All right.
Thank you.
Install them.
I'm sorry?
valves? You've installed some in the past, I believe.
We have 3 on 137th, which were installed in that project, and then we have 6 in Boca Ciega and 1 on Pruitt.
Right, but when, the ones that were installed, I believe you got a quote for them, and that was very expensive, and you ended up doing those yourself.
We did do 4 or 5 of them ourselves, because they were going to charge $1,500 per valve to install. We had the help of Treasure Island, and then we also had the help from Spieler.
That is an option, or that?
It's an option, absolutely. But we have to look at the different types of pipes, because there's so many different kinds, to see what type of valve we would need and the installation.
Okay.
You
I
think
would-
you could come back with a ballpark of what it would cost to put one in at 140th and also on
Absolutely. On Bay Point?
Bay Point?
Sure.
And, which is, I think, our two worst areas, and then,
Yes.
and we can fit it in, or
Yeah, and then we
cut it
can,
in half, or
yeah.
whatever we wanna do.
absolutely.
There'll be a good test on seeing how functional they really are. I don't think we'd have any better test than 140th.
Well, that's the worst place, I
Right,
mean,
right.
yeah, but yes, I agree. Okay.
I will get that information for you. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's,
That's it.
So
I would
just,
think that's probably a good place for us to stop, so we can go ahead and,
just to, I guess to summarize real quick, what is presented to you is the capital request by department. So when I go through the budgeting process, it's now gonna say, okay, now I gotta assign these costs to the funds that are going to fund them. Some of these departments are their own fund, and that's easy. Marina, sanitation, stormwater, Archibald, those are all going to those funds. The others go to the general or general fund department, so we gotta figure out, you know, is the general fund gonna afford this, or are there other options? So we have the lost fund, the local option sales tax fund, that's the penny for Pinellas. So that's a great avenue, because it's only to fund public infrastructure, and so I think it was section 222 for statutes dictates what we can spend that money on. So one is construction, improvement of public facilities, and then there's kind of some wide ranging of what public facilities consist of, but it even says government office buildings, and then vehicles, fire department vehicle, EMS vehicle, and it says, or any other vehicle. So in all our vehicle purchases can go to lost fund, and then any expenditure for construction, maintenance, or provision of utilities. So some of those public works, capital requests, anything basically that I can pull into the lost fund legally, in accordance with statute, I'm gonna do. Then we have our other avenues in the general fund, which is the BP settlement money, that parking, accumulation of parking for capital. What I want to avoid is using unassigned general fund dollars, because a lot of just our operating costs really eat up the revenues on the general fund. So I don't want to bankrupt the general fund if we don't have adequate funding. So that's what we'll go through in the budgeting process. But those are the available funding sources to fund all these.
well, and there's state money available for hardening of the cities for sea level rise, so
Yep.
probably these check valves would fall under that, to where we could get some state money
And yeah, and I'll certainly
back to us on that, so.
denote that if there's a specific revenue source tied to it, perfect. Even if it's in the general fund, we know we've got that current year, that future year revenue that's going to absorb those costs. So for sure.
Okay, thank you. With that, it's 5:39, this meeting is adjourned.